This week, I'm gonna try to learn how to tattoo. I bought a kit online that's supposed to have everything you need to start, and at the end of the week, I'm gonna try and challenge myself. But more about that later. All right, we're ready to make our first stencil. I just went online, found some stuff that I thought would be relatively easy to start with, and printed them out. I'm not sure if it was the paper I got, but I found I had to push really hard in order for the stencil to transfer. It's recommended to cover your surface in saran wrap. Both the stencil and the tattoo ink have a high possibility of staining, and it just makes cleanup a lot easier. Here I'm just using a pair of scissors to cut out the stencils so they're easier to work with. So the only thing that the kit didn't come with was stencil primer. That's something that you put on the skin to transfer the carbon onto the skin. Like, it's got to have like some moisture to transfer onto. So I was doing some looking online to find alternatives, and you'll never guess what it is. I don't know why. If you want to use Speed Stick as stencil primer, it works best to apply an even coat across the entire skin and then use a paper towel to wipe off most of the excess. To transfer your stencil, carefully place it on the skin, holding it in place with one hand, smooth it out with the other, and then press down evenly across the entire stencil. So the only downside to using Speed Stick as stencil primer is it needs at least 2 hours to dry. So while I was waiting, I figured I would make a few more stencils and prepare them on a separate skin. To get started, I'm setting the speed on my power supply, installing the needle, and using some Vaseline on the ink cup so it doesn't move around, as well as spread some on top of the stencil so the ink is easier to wipe away. Here I'm using a 3-round liner, which is the smallest needle in the kit. It consists of 3 needles and a point, and although there's a lot of ink coming out, the line it makes is actually very fine. I mean, it could be a lot worse. I mean, this line right here, we're not going to talk about that one. Now I just needed to repeat the same steps for the spider, and something I found helpful was to drag the needle rather than try to push it. It was something that was hard to get used to, but you're met with a lot less resistance and the lines end up way nicer. This line work is far from great, so I'm hoping that when I fill it in with the black, I can hide some of these mistakes. For this, I'm using a 7 Magnum needle, which is 2 rows of needles in a weaved formation, 4 on the bottom row and 3 on the upper row. To fill in, I'm just making small circular motions and trying to keep all the needles at the same depth. It is also way louder. It's not that great. I definitely need to just take my time with the outline. It could be worse. But I'm gonna try and fill in the spider now and see if I can rescue the bad outline job that I did. Starting to look a little better. Time for some color. Although it's not perfect, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Okay, I had to take a couple days break because these skins that I ordered originally, they're not as good as the one that came in the package. Like, this one is probably twice as thick and it actually stretches and it accepted the ink really well. These other ones, the needle would just tear through. Like, they're almost like rubber. They don't stretch at all. So I ordered some new ones. They are so much nicer. They're like 3 times as thick. These are supposed to be some of the best fake skin products to use. I also had to get some more ink. I bought some of the stencil primer that I was missing. We're in it. This was way more than I was gonna originally invest into trying this out. I'm gonna have to get good enough that I can start tattooing people on the side just to pay for all this stuff. I forgot to draw his eyes. And I forgot these eyes as well. The new skin, the new ink, everything seems to be working way better than it was before. The skin is taking the ink better. This new ink is a lot thinner, and maybe it's just because my hand speed is getting a little more in sync with the gun, but it feels a lot more consistent in the lines. I am having some difficulty with circles. Like, perfectly straight lines and circles are extremely tough. So all that was left to do was to keep practicing. Now I'm going to attempt shading for the first time. Here I'm using a 9 Magnum needle. Trying to keep all the needles parallel to the skin, I'm moving my hands down and out in a whipping motion to get the ink darker on the spots that you initially contact and then fade it out gradually. I found I had to do multiple passes to get a nice outcome on this synthetic skin. Shading this piece took me hours to get the desired result, but in the end I was super happy with how it turned out. There's something that I haven't told you. That is that I'm going to be tattooing myself. I got in contact with an artist who agreed to oversee watching me tattoo myself just in case I mess it up too bad. So I'm going there to meet him right now. I'm so excited for this.
When I'm doing it, I'll go like against the grain and just...
Against the grain?
Yeah.
Okay. After you shave the desired area, just wash it off with some green soap on a paper towel. Now I'm applying some stencil primer, rubbing it in, and realizing applying the stencil with one hand was probably not the best idea. Use both hands to smooth it out and ensure good adhesion. I booked this appointment in the beginning of the week thinking I'd have the full week to practice. However, with the delay getting the new skins, I actually only ended up getting about 10 hours, so I was a little nervous. The tattoo I picked had a ton of fine detail, and I pretty quickly realized why he was laughing at me when I showed him what I wanted to tattoo, because I greatly underestimated how hard this was going to be. I would say tattooing real skin overall is easier than fake skin. However, the stakes are much, much higher. For this fine detail, I was using a 3-round liner, and Jordan was nice enough to hook me up with his gun, so I didn't have to use the foot pedal as I was tattooing my own leg. A little over an hour in, I realized I was not going to have enough time to finish this on my own. I was aware the design was going to be difficult, but I did want to challenge myself. I decided to let Jordan step in and quickly finish the rest. I just want to give him a shout out, Wormwood Tattoos. Super grateful for the opportunity that he was down to try something like this. He was super happy to share lots of knowledge with me and answer any questions I had, and was more than happy to step in when my tattoo was in shambles. Although I couldn't do it on my own, I'm still really happy I tried, and I'm definitely gonna try again. It's like having trouble focusing. I guess I should have checked to see if it was going to work before I started.
Hell yeah.